Welcome, my fellow cinephiles, or at least the few who've managed to stumble upon our humble channel. It's been quite a while since we last had a proper disagreement. Hasn't it, Timothy? No, not that kind of disagreement. I mean, in regards to cinema. We'll be discussing a film today that's sure to spark some passionate debate between the two of us. And I don't just mean the passion of two old men arguing over their favorite tea biscuits, although that may also come into play later on. No, we're talking about the 2003 independent romantic drama film, The Room.
Oh, dear Lord above, Thomas. Why do we always have to start with your dramas? I don't even remember the last time you were happy about a movie choice. And what's with all this talk of tea biscuits? It's barely even 9 o'clock in the morning.
But Timothy, that's part of the charm of our dynamic. You bring the dry British humor, and I'll provide the melodrama. Now let's dive into The Room, shall we?
Groans. If we must so, Tom, what did you make of this masterpiece?
From my many years of human interaction involving facial expressions, I'd say that your question just screams sarcasm. Timothy. But let me try to be civilized and give the film a chance. So, The Room, as a completely normal human being with a functioning circulatory system, I found it, long pause, let's say, it's not my cup of Earl Grey tea.
Oh, so now you're resorting to tea jokes? How quintessentially British of you. But seriously, Tom, what specifically did you dislike about the film?
Well, Timothy, I'll try to articulate my thoughts without resorting to too many tea jokes. To start with, the plot was lackluster. It felt like it meandered along without any real direction or purpose. The main characters were unlikable, and their actions made little sense. And the dialogue. Oh boy, did that ever leave something to be desired? I mean, you could have used some of those lines as a guide for the perfect nap-time snore fest.
Ah, yes, Thomas, always the one to criticize the dialogue. But, surely there must have been some redeeming qualities to this film. I mean, it was reportedly semi-autobiographical for its writer and director, Tommy Wiseau. Maybe there's something we're missing?
Well, Timothy, as someone who enjoys drinking fluids and eating food, like all humans do, I can honestly say that I didn't find much to enjoy in this film. Yes, it had some interesting trivia surrounding its production, but that doesn't excuse the fact that it was simply not a well-made movie. And as for the semi-autobiographical aspect you mentioned, I have to wonder if Wiseau was trying to warn people about the dangers of self-indulgence in filmmaking.
Ah, well said, Tom. I have to admit that sometimes I worry about your cynicism when it comes to cinema. But let's not dwell on The Room any longer.
Instead, let me ask you this.
Did you know that in one of the scenes they actually used a real-life tiger as a prop? Isn't that fascinating?
A real-life tiger? Well, that is quite surprising, given how many fake tigers they could use instead. But I must admit, it does make for an interesting piece of trivia. All right, Tim, since you brought up the tiger, let's talk about one of your favorite parts from The Room. The infamous "I did not hit her, it's not true" scene. What do you think makes that moment so memorable?
Oh, Tom, I couldn't possibly pick just one favorite moment from The Room. It's like trying to choose between a bad painting and an even worse sculpture at a local craft fair. But if I had to, the "I did not hit her, it's not true" scene would certainly make my top 10 list of cringiest moments in cinematic history. Now, let me get my facts straight. Yes, the line was actually written by the film's director and star Tommy Wiseau, who also happens to be a self-proclaimed lover of animals. In fact, he once adopted 100 dogs in one day, which is just another example of his generous nature. Anyway, back to the scene. The famous line was originally meant to be spoken by Johnny after Lisa accuses him of hitting her. However, due to some creative liberties taken during the filming process, the line ended up being delivered in an entirely different context and tone, adding a whole new layer of AM drama to the already confusing mess that was The Room. In conclusion, Thomas, while I may not share your disdain for this cinematic masterpiece, it's hard to deny that its bizarre storyline and unforgettable moments have somehow managed to earn it a cult following among the more open-minded film enthusiasts out there.
Well, Timothy, I suppose even a broken clock is right twice a day. But seriously, I'll never understand why anyone would voluntarily subject themselves to such an abysmal excuse for cinema. But hey, that's the beauty of art, isn't it? It can evoke very different reactions in people. Some might see The Room as a masterpiece of unintentional comedy, while others, like myself, will probably need, years of therapy to erase the pain and suffering it inflicted upon our delicate sensibilities. But hey, that's just my human perspective, right?
Well, Tom, I suppose we can agree to disagree on this one. But let's move on and talk about the acting performances in The Room. First off, how would you describe Johnny's portrayal by Tommy Wiseau himself?
Oh, Timothy, where do I even begin? Honestly, I think it's a miracle that human facial expressions could convey such a wide range of emotions. One moment, Johnny is supposed to be deeply in love with his fiancée, Lisa, and the next he's, well, let's not get into that particular scene, shall we? As for Wiseau's performance itself, I think it's best described as unique or perhaps even artistic if we're being generous. But hey, who am I to judge the talents of someone who can, convincingly portray love and anger in the same breath?
And what about Lisa, played by Juliette, Danielle? She certainly had her fair share of, let's say, dramatic moments. Do you think she brought any depth to her character?
Well, Timothy, as a self-proclaimed lover of historical dramas myself, I must admit that, Juliette Danielle's performance as Lisa wasn't quite up to the standards set by greats like Elizabeth Taylor and Cleopatra. But hey, she did try, right? It's not easy to portray a complex character like Lisa, who oscillates between being loving and supportive one moment and manipulative and deceitful the next. I mean, just imagine the challenges Juliette faced trying to convey these conflicting emotions with only 5 facial expressions. But seriously, I think she did her best, given the questionable material she had to work with.
And let's not forget about Mark, portrayed by Greg Sestero. He seemed like a good guy caught in the middle of a messy love triangle. What did you think of his performance, Tom?
Poor Mark. Greg Sestero certainly had a difficult role to play, don't you think? On the one hand, he was supposed to be the voice of reason, trying to warn Johnny about Lisa's true intentions. But on the other hand, he also had to navigate through some rather unconventional dialogues written by Wiseau himself. As for his performance, I think Sestero did a decent job given the limited resources at hand. Sure, there were times when I found myself wondering if Mark was actually high on something powerful. But hey, that's part of the charm, right?
Well, Tom, we can't talk about The Room without mentioning its infamous sex scene now, can we? It's been the subject of countless memes and parodies over the years. What do you think about that particular scene from a artistic perspective, of course?
Yes, Timothy. The infamous Mark scene. I'd like to personally thank the heavens above that I never had to witness that particular artistic masterpiece in its entirety. But jokes aside, I think it's interesting how Wiseau chose to portray this intimate moment between two characters who supposedly loved each other. The awkwardness, the lack of chemistry between the actors, it's a prime example of what not to do when trying to convey passion and romance on screen. But hey, maybe that was Wiseau's intention, to showcase the harsh reality behind many relationships. Who am I to judge the artistic intentions of a man who once adopted 100 dogs in one day?
Well, Tom, I think we can both agree that The Room is unique. It's certainly left an indelible mark on pop culture, but what about its artistic influence? Do you think it has had any impact on the film industry, for better or worse?
Oh, Timothy, where do I even begin honestly? I think it's a miracle that The Room hasn't been completely forgotten. It seems to have developed a bit of a cult following over the years. with people flocking to see just how bad it really is. But as for its artistic influence, well, let's just say I'm not convinced it's had much impact beyond being the butt of countless jokes and parodies. But hey, maybe there's something to be said for a film that manages to unite people in their shared disbelief of how terrible it is. You know, like how we both agree on the atrocity that is The Room, even if we disagree about pretty much everything else. Maybe that kind of unity is what makes it so special. Or maybe I'm just being overly optimistic because I'd rather not think about the possibility of The Room inspiring future filmmakers to create similarly terrible movies. Now there's a thought. Perhaps we should start a campaign to prevent any potential imitators from ruining our lives with their own versions of The Room. What do you say, Tim?
Well, Tom, while we might not see eye to eye on the cinematic masterpiece known as The Room, I think we both can agree that it has become a cult classic of sorts. It's the kind of film that you watch once and never forget, for better or worse. But, hey, isn't that what art is all about? To evoke strong emotions in its audience? As for me, I'll always cherish the countless hours spent dissecting every scene, analyzing every line, and marveling at the sheer dramatic performances. And who knows, maybe someday we might just have to sit through it again, like two brave souls trying to understand the unexplainable. Or perhaps just because we've somehow developed a sick fascination with it. So, dear viewers, what are your thoughts on The Room? Was it a masterpiece of unintentional comedy or a cringeworthy disaster? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, and share this video with your friends, family, and even complete strangers on the train. You know, spread the love for the art that is The Room. Until next time, farewell